The inadequacy of the Sherman and the German Iron Wall. By the summer of 1944, following the D-Day landings, the American mechanized forces were embroiled in the brutal hedgerow fighting of Normandy. The US Army's primary battle tank was the M4 Sherman, a reliable, versatile, and mass-produced machine. Yet the Sherman suffered from a critical vulnerability. Its thin armor and gasoline engine made it notoriously flammable, earning it the German nickname Tommy Coker or Tommy Cooker. Critically, the Sherman's standard 75mm gun was often inadequate against the thick frontal armor of the superior German tanks, the Panther and the Tiger. The average lifespan of a Sherman tank in frontline combat was measured in days, sometimes hours. To succeed, American tankers had to rely on speed, superior numbers, and most importantly, unconventional tactics. Into this furnace of attrition stepped Staff Sergeant Lafayette G. Poole, a towering, aggressive Texan who had left engineering college to enlist. Poole was a natural hard charger, a commander who believed that the quickest way home was to smash the German army to pieces as fast as possible. He was assigned to the 3rd Armored Division, Spearhead, and his tank crew quickly became known as one of the most effective, yet most recklessly daring in the entire European Theatre of Operations, ETO. The crew and the baptism of fire, June 1944, Poole led a crew that was virtually inseparable. Corporal Wilbert Red Richards, driver, Bert Close, assistant driver bow gunner, Corporal Willis Oller, gunner, and Del Boggs, loader. To honor the popular big band swing music of the era, Poole named all his tanks In the Mood, a name that, ironically, belied the insane, relentless rhythm of their combat life. Poole's unit first saw action near Saint-Lô, France, in late June 1944. From the very beginning, Poole's tactical doctrine was pure aggression. Always attack, always lead, and never stop moving. His Sherman M4A1, the first to bear the name In the Mood, was upgraded with the more potent 76mm high-velocity gun, granting them a fighting chance against the formidable German armor. In his very first engagement, Poole's crew was credited with destroying over 70 German soldiers and several armored vehicles. But such extreme aggression came at a cost that tested the limits of American logistics and mechanical ingenuity. The Mad Mechanic's Challenge. A key element of this legend and the core of the video's focus was the relentless pressure placed upon the maintenance crews. Poole's constant high-speed assaults and his willingness to engage German armor at point-blank range meant that his tanks were consistently the most shot-up, battered, and critically damaged vehicles in the entire division. His first In the Mood tank lasted only 6 days before a German Panzerfaust anti-tank weapon knocked it out of action, forcing the crew to bail out under heavy fire. Poole and his crew, uninjured, were immediately given a new Sherman. But the cycle of destruction was set. Poole would push the machine to its absolute breaking point, and the mechanics, whom he often treated with impatient fury, would perform battlefield miracles to keep him fighting. The mechanics were the unsung heroes of Poole's unparalleled success. They had to be mad, or brilliant, or both, to repair tanks that had been hit multiple times often, with shattered suspensions, jammed turrets, and leaking fuel tanks, all within hours, knowing that Poole would immediately drive the repaired vehicle straight back into the heart of the German line. The efficiency and success of Lafayette Poole were not just a testament to his marksmanship, but to the extraordinary, desperate engineering performed under extreme pressure to keep the legend alive. Following the loss of his first Sherman, Staff Sergeant Poole and his crew were quickly assigned their 2nd and 3rd tanks, both inheriting the now famous name In the Mood. It was with these tanks, operating during the massive breakout from Normandy, Operation Cobra, that Poole cemented his legendary status and imposed impossible demands on the American support system. Poole's combat philosophy was the exact opposite of the cautious, reconnaissance-heavy approach typically demanded by the threat of German heavy armor. Poole believed the Sherman's best defense was its speed and its ability to shoot first. He operated his tank, often leading his platoon not as a support unit, but as a spearhead, a forward scout driving deep into enemy positions. This recklessness paid dividends. In just 81 days of continuous combat across France and Belgium, Poole AS tank spearheaded 21 major attacks and became the highest-scoring American tank crew of the entire war. The statistics are staggering and speak directly to the mechanical crisis Poole perpetually created. Poole's tank crew was officially credited with destroying 12 German tanks and a massive total of 258 armoured vehicles and self-propelled guns. This tally, earned in less than 3 months, was a direct result of Poole's doctrine of aggressive engagement at short range, often utilising flanking manoeuvres to exploit the thin side armour of the superior German Panther and Tiger tanks. The mechanics, the unsung heroes of the 3rd Armoured. The true burden of this record fell squarely upon the shoulders of the maintenance crews and the tank's dedicated mechanics. Poole's 2nd and 3rd Shermans were not simply swapped out for new ones, they were targets. The tank was repeatedly hit by anti-tank fire, rocket-propelled grenades, Panzerfausts, and German shells, suffering severe damage that would have seen any other cruise tank permanently retired. The mechanics of the 3rd Armoured Division had to be brilliant, operating under extreme pressure just miles from the front line. Poole would limp back to the repair depot with a shattered suspension, a jammed turret ring, or a fractured cannon, demanding the tank be operational by morning. The mechanics performed genuine battlefield miracles, often working through the night under primitive conditions, welding new plates, replacing entire tracks, and unjamming mechanisms fouled by shrapnel and mud. They viewed the In the Mood crew with a mixture of awe and exasperation. Awe at their survival and exasperation at their relentless abuse of the equipment. One key mechanical constant was the continuous maintenance of the tank's main gun. Poole's loader, Del Boggs, was famous for his speed, but the constant rapid firing necessary for Poole AS tactics put immense strain on the gun S breech and barrel. The maintenance crews had to ensure the complex machinery could withstand the enormous pressures generated by firing the high-velocity 76mm rounds hundreds of times a week, all to keep up with the Texan tanker who refused to believe his M4 Sherman was outmatched. Their ingenuity, often utilizing salvage parts from destroyed German vehicles or wrecked Allied Shermans, ensured that the In the Mood kept rolling forward, turning a piece of damaged machinery into a psychological force on the battlefield. The flank and the ferocity Poole's strategic genius lay in his utilization of the Sherman S' one true advantage, its speed. He rarely engaged the formidable German Panther in a frontal confrontation. Instead, he preferred flanking maneuvers, using the French countryside and hedgerows to close the distance and strike the vulnerable side or rear of the German heavy armor. These engagements were always fought at terrifyingly close range, demanding perfect coordination from his crew. The precision and ferocity of Poole's short-range engagements resulted in the unparalleled number of destroyed soft-skin vehicles and self-propelled guns, proving that even a technically inferior tank could dominate the battlefield when commanded by a relentless and tactically brilliant crew. The mechanics ensured that the instrument of his genius remained functional despite the impossible odds. The Falaise Gap and the art of the aggressive flank. By August 1944, Poole's crew was deep in the pursuit across France, their operational rhythm defined by the relentless pace of the Allied breakout. Their 3rd and final Sherman, In the Mood, had become a near mythological entity within the 3rd Armoured Division. The tank's presence at the spearhead of Task Force Y was often a guarantee of success. largely due to audacious, calculatedly reckless combat doctrine, exploit the speed and firepower of the American tank against the logistical fragility of the German army. The massive Battle of the Falaise Gap provided the ideal theatre for Pool's methods. As German forces desperately attempted to escape the Allied encirclement, they became a mass of retreating vehicles, artillery, and soft-skinned transports, perfect targets for Pool's ferocity. Pool realized that the best use of his tank was not to seek out Tiger duels, but to obliterate the enemy's ability to retreat or resupply. Pool engaged the retreating Germans with terrifying effectiveness, utilizing the Sherman's speed to constantly flank enemy positions and fire rapidly. His gunner, Corporal Willis Oller, and his loader, Del Boggs, maintained a firing rate so fast that the German soldiers often believed they were facing multiple tanks. During the relentless slaughter at the Falaise Gap, Pool's crew was credited with destroying dozens of trucks, half-tracks, and towed guns, contributing significantly to the monumental German losses in that engagement. His aggressive tactics not only accounted for enemy equipment, but also neutralized nearly 1,000 German soldiers during his 81-day tenure. The psychological toll and the maintenance stigma Pool's sheer ferocity and unparalleled success came at a considerable psychological cost, both to the enemy and to his own support team. For the German soldiers, the nickname Texas Tanker was born of fear. They were encountering an enemy commander who possessed the audacity and skill typically associated with their own elite panzer aces, but driving a tank they had been taught to despise. The fact that the Sherman could achieve such a relentless level of destruction was a moral shock to the Wehrmacht. For the American supply and maintenance chain, Pool's existence was a recurring logistical nightmare. The mechanics, though performing miracles, faced constant pressure. Pool was known for his quick temper and absolute insistence that his tank be ready to roll within hours. There are anecdotes of Pool threatening maintenance officers with his service pistol if he felt they were delaying his tanker's return to the front line, behavior that, while clearly insubordinate, was tolerated by his commanding officers because of his insane combat results. This tension created a strange symbiosis. The mechanics cursed Pool's name while performing impossible repairs, knowing that the man they were enabling was the most effective ground shaker the U.S. Army possessed. His third and final in-the-mood Sherman was a patchwork marvel, a Frankenstein's monster of replaced tracks, patched armor, and a constantly serviced gun held together by the dedication and genius of the anonymous enlisted men behind the lines. The hunt for the Panther and the duel of speed. Pool did, however, actively seek out confrontations with the superior German armor when the odds were favorable. He understood that the only reliable method to defeat the heavy Panther tank was to use the Sherman's quick turret traverse and speed to get shots into the weaker side or rear armor. In one famous instance near Bionville, Pool's tank unexpectedly found itself in a close-range duel with a German Panther. The Panther had superior armor and a more powerful gun, but the Sherman was quicker. Pool's driver, Red Richards, executed a rapid reverse maneuver while Willis Oller quickly traversed the turret. Pool, utilizing the tank's mobility, slammed a decisive 76mm round into the side of the Panther, knocking it out of action. This confrontation underscored Pool's philosophy. American tanks win not through iron, but through aggression and superior crew drill. His crew, having fought alongside each other for weeks, operated with a seamless, intuitive coordination that no other crew could match. By September 1944, the pursuit had become a high-speed logistical race across the plains of France and Belgium. Pool's tank, now a veteran machine held together by sheer willpower and constant mechanical intervention, led the 3rd Armored Division into the final desperate battles before the German border. The goal was to breach the Siegfried Line, West Wall, Germany's heavily fortified defense belt. The strategic tempo demanded by Poole reached a breaking point for the men and the machines. The tank crew, living and fighting in the confined, deafening metal box, were perpetually exhausted. Their uniform was stained with mud, sweat, and oil. The intense stress of continuous close-range combat, where survival was decided by fractions of a second, began to wear on the crew's nerves. Poole himself, though fearless, was operating on adrenaline and a manic determination to end the war quickly. The mechanics' challenge during this phase was maintaining the powertrain and the suspension system. The Sherman was pushing speeds and endurance limits far beyond its design parameters, demanding constant replacement of road wheels and repairs to the transmission, all while dodging the remaining German ambushes and heavy artillery fire. The fact that the crew's third Sherman, the patched-up veteran in the mood, was still operational was a testament to the dedication of the rear echelon support. The pre-rotation decision. As the American forces approached the heavily defended German city of Aachen and the initial fortifications of the Siegfried Line, Poole's crew was about to receive a unique dispensation. Due to their unparalleled success and incredible survival record, they were chosen to be rotated out of combat for a mandatory war bond tour back in the United States. This honor was designed to utilize their heroic status for propaganda purposes, giving them a much-needed reprieve and celebrating their extraordinary contribution. Lieutenant Colonel Walter Richardson, Poole's task force commander, knew the crew was due to leave within days. However, duty called one last time. On September 15, 1944, near the German border town of Münsterbusch, south of Aachen, Poole's tank was deliberately positioned on the flank of an attack, acting as a critical vanguard for the advancing task force. Richardson trusted Poole's crew implicitly, relying on their experience for protection in a sector known for containing hidden German heavy armor, the final fatal engagement. It was during this flanking maneuver that Poole's remarkable streak of luck finally evaporated. As the In the Mood advanced, they passed a seemingly innocuous structure, a large German garage or maintenance shed. Poole, ever vigilant, noticed the door begin to slowly lift. What emerged was not a soft target, but a colossal, dangerous German Nashorn rhinoceros tank destroyer, armed with a fearsome 80mm gun. The encounter was sudden, brutal, and at near point-blank range, the very scenario Poole typically dominated. Poole's gunner, Willis Oller, immediately recognized the threat and attempted to ram a 76mm armor-piercing round into the breach. But in the frantic, critical moment, the round jammed. The American tank was momentarily defenseless. The German crew did not hesitate. The Nashorn fired a devastating 88mm round that struck the In the Mood with shattering force. The immense projectile tore through the Sherman's armor, instantly knocking the tank out of action. The damage was catastrophic. Poole, who was standing exposed in the commander's hatch, was thrown clear of the vehicle by the explosion. He landed heavily, suffering horrific shrapnel wounds to his leg. The crew managed to quickly bail out of the burning wreck, dragging their wounded commander to safety. The Sherman, that had destroyed an estimated 258 enemy vehicles, was now itself a smouldering ruin. Poole's incredible 81-day run of combat, his record of unparalleled destruction, and the sustained mechanical miracle that kept his Sherman alive had finally ended, mere days before his scheduled rotation home. The cost of his reckless bravery was paid not just by the tank, but by his body. The sudden, brutal end of Staff Sergeant Lafayette G. Poole's combat career sent a palpable wave of dismay through the 3rd Armored Division. Poole was more than just a successful tanker. He was a living legend, a symbol of American resilience and aggression against the perceived technical superiority of the German panzer forces. The sight of his smoldering Sherman, the third and final In the Mood, was a grim testament to the fact that no amount of courage or mechanical genius could entirely overcome the brutal calculus of war. Poole was rushed to the rear for emergency medical treatment. The shrapnel damage to his leg was catastrophic, requiring immediate and extensive surgery. Despite the best efforts of Army doctors, the injuries were so severe that his leg eventually required amputation several inches above the knee. The Texas tanker, whose unparalleled success was built on speed, movement, and relentless aggression, was now permanently sidelined. His personal war, just days shy of his intended rotation home, was over. The crew, Richards, Close, Oller, and Boggs, though physically intact, suffered the shock of losing their commander and their machine. Having fought together for 81 days, surviving 21 major assaults, and witnessing the destruction of hundreds of enemy vehicles, they were a tight-knit, battle-hardened unit. The bond forged in the close confines of the Sherman tank was unbreakable. They were swiftly returned to the United States as heroes for the War Bond Tour, but they carried the heavy psychological weight of their near-mythical experience and the tragic fate of their commander. The unquantifiable record, controversy and recognition pool's combat record, 12 German tanks and 258 armored soft-skin vehicles destroyed, remains the highest verified tally for any American tanker in the European theater of operations. This astounding figure was a testament not just to his marksmanship, but to the strategic impact of the aggressive tactics that the maintenance crews made possible. Poole's primary role was not panzer hunting, but destroying the German logistical spine, which was arguably more critical to the Allied advance than destroying a single heavy tank. However, the sheer size of the record also drew controversy. While the US military confirmed the numbers, many European historians initially struggled to reconcile such high figures with the capabilities of the M4 Sherman. This disparity highlighted a fundamental issue: the American focus on destruction of supply lines versus the German focus on tank-on-tank victories. Poole's achievements forced a re-evaluation of what constituted an ace in mechanized warfare. Despite the controversies, Poole received substantial recognition for his extraordinary service: the Distinguished Service Cross, the Silver Star, and the Purple Heart, among others. These awards were a final acknowledgement of the relentless combat intensity that the entire crew endured. The mechanic's quiet pride. The story of Lafayette G. Poole is incomplete without recognizing the heroes who lived outside the spotlight. The mechanics and maintenance crews. They were the ones who truly achieved the impossible. Poole's record was their record. They faced the logistical nightmare of a battlefield where the supply chain was constantly strained, yet they managed to keep a tank that should have died dozens of times, the third in the mood, in the fight until the very last day of its commander's career. Their quiet, unseen genius, working through sleepless nights to weld, repair, and replace, was the real engine behind the legend. They proved that the ingenuity of the American industrial effort was ultimately more decisive than the superior armor of the German Panther. The mechanics turned an average tank into a legendary instrument of war, securing their own silent place in the annals of the Spearhead Division. Aquí tiene el capítulo sexto y final de la narrativa, que se enfoca en el difícil regreso a la vida civil, el reconocimiento tardío y el legado duradero del mecánico y el Sherman in the mood. Chapter 6. The Silent War and the Legacy of the In the Mood, the Unmaking of a Tanker, post-1945. The return home for Lafayette G. Poole was not the hero's parade he had earned, but a quiet, agonizing struggle for rehabilitation. His injuries were not just physical. The transition from the adrenaline-soaked intensity of combat, where life and death were decided in milliseconds, back to the mundane reality of civilian life, was a challenge few truly understood. The amputation of his leg meant the end of the hyper-aggressive lifestyle that had fueled his command. For nearly 2 years, Poole endured a grueling period of rehabilitation. Though he briefly attempted to rejoin civilian life, running a small business, the rhythm of peacetime could not contain the Texas tanker. The unique experience of sustained, intense mechanized combat, the sound of the guns, the smell of burning diesel, the absolute dependency on his crew, had permanently altered his psyche. In a poignant act of loyalty to his former life, Poole fought tirelessly to be readmitted to the U.S. Army, eventually succeeding. He returned not to the front lines, but to Fort Knox, Kentucky, serving as an instructor. His mission became teaching a new generation of tankers the brutal, practical lessons learned in the hedgerows and on the roads of France. He passed on the wisdom that had saved his crew countless times: speed, aggressive flanking, and the crucial reliance on the mad mechanic to keep the vehicle alive. The unsung hero's legacy. The final legacy of the In the Mood crew is the enduring symbol it represents, the victory of American industrial capacity and crew cohesion over the superior, but numerically limited, German engineering. While the Tiger and Panther tanks are often celebrated for their individual might, it was the mass-produced Sherman, driven by the relentless will of tankers like Poole, and maintained by the ingenuity of the anonymous mechanics that crushed the Wehrmacht in the field. The true mad mechanic was not one man, but the entire unsung Ordnance and Maintenance Corps of the 3rd Armored Division. Their dedication to performing battlefield miracles, replacing engines and suspension systems under fire, was the continuous, essential ingredient that enabled Poole's sustained destruction. Without their sleepless nights and their ability to keep a thrice-damaged tank rolling, the record of 258 destroyed vehicles would have been impossible. Their labor proved that the American production line extended right onto the battlefield. A quiet end and an enduring legend. Poole retired from the Army in 1960 as a chief warrant officer. He lived a quiet life in Texas, passing away peacefully in 1991. The sheer audacity of his combat record, however, has ensured that the legend of the Texas tanker continues to grow. While Hollywood often romanticizes the lonely hero, the story of Poole and the In the Mood remains a powerful testament to the necessity of the collective. It is a chronicle that defines the American way of armored warfare, a philosophy where the individual hero pushes the limits, but the victory belongs equally to the crew, to the factory, and to the mad mechanic who, under pressure and often without thanks, turned a broken piece of machinery into a battlefield legend.